Greetings, YouTube. You know, one thing I love about MCOC, and it's truly something I really love, is how many MCOC champions in the Marvel Universe are represented in this game. Everyone from the Guardians of the Galaxy to X-Men to the Avengers. You know, there's just so many great champions that really, if you love like a specific comic, I grew up personally obsessed with Spider-Man in the 1990s incredible animated series. I know people who grew up loving the 1990s animated X-Men series, two of the greatest animated series of all time. If you haven't checked those out, maybe you're younger, you're like 13 years old, you want to figure out a way, hopefully legally, to look up Spider-Man the animated series and X-Men animated series from the 1990s. They are literally masterpieces of the craft. So I say that to say, it's wonderful that you can collect so many champions and fight them Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter style in a mobile video game. However, there are some times and some cases where certain abilities of the champions we love make literally no sense. And so I have compiled a short list of some of the ones that I have noticed and a fellow friend and subscriber, Butters, has noticed in the context of synergies that make no sense. And by synergies, really what I'm talking about, more of them, is buffs. So let's say we're just going to take Iceman here. This is somebody that, you know, causes cold snap and frostbite. This is a champion that literally freezes the opponent. And yet, somehow, for some un-God-known reason, this champion is not immune to cold snap or frostbite. You tell me what kind of sense that makes. Kabam, why did you do that? On the right, you can see the abilities are Cold Snap and Frostbite, and yet still can't stop either of them. An Iceman versus an Iceman, they should cancel each other out, and yet we know that is not the case. But oh, this video is just getting started. In fact, let's stay with the mutant class and talk about a couple of things that really annoy me. Let's take Storm, for example. A champion that shoots out lightning better than most of the Oklahoma thunderstorms I see that pass through Stillwater, Oklahoma, my hometown right now. We can see stun and we can see what's called lightning arc in her abilities on the right. But would you believe that somehow this champion that can summon lightning is not immune to shock? How the heck is that possible? What sense does that make? Kabam, what were you smoking when you made this champion? But not to be outdone with that concept, we also know that there is another champion whose lists and attributes are all about lightning and shock. And that is Thor, the god, the Ragnarok immortal god himself. Someone that also can summon thunder and lightning, and yet is not shock proof. What the heck? Kabam! Fire those interns that are Canadian high schoolers and at least recruit some new blood that can make your champions make more sense than the ineffectiveness of Spidey Gwen's Special One. Now, let's jump back to another cosmic champion whom a lot of people love, and for very good reason. Let's talk about Angela. Hey, let's check out Angela. Look at that champion and all her radiance. Although I don't understand why we are sexually objectifying a woman by giving her almost no clothing and yet expecting her to block hits when her skin is completely exposed. But I digress. You see what's holding in her hand? That's right, a big freaking sword. This sword should destroy people, specifically just like Guillotine, with bleed damage for days, ladies and gentlemen. And yet, we know that Angela does not cause bleed with her sword. In fact, in her abilities on the right, you can see bleed damage is not part of the 4 listed. How the heck does that make any sense? Is that blade made of plastic? If so, how does she do so much damage? But she is not the only champion that I want to talk about with a really big sword that's a badass female and yet gets absolutely screwed over by the developers in this strange buff. let's scroll down to our girl PSYLOCKE, and let's check her out. This time she actually has got some clothes on, and even though you can't see the sword from the picture, she should still be able to cause bleed with her abilities, and yet she does nothing of the sense. Yes, she is amazing when it comes to power draining and power locking and power burning the champions. One of the better power control champs in the game, but no bleed? Come on, Kabam. Again, what the heck were you smoking? But we are going to move now to the Mystic class and speak specifically about one of my favorite champs in the game. You can see this guy. I can't wait to awaken him someday. Might take all of the labyrinth paths to do it. But Ghost Rider at rank 4, you can see the fire burning in his skull. He is literally on fire. If you are on fire, you would think that fire should be something that causes you to gain power. So if Ghost Rider is fighting someone that incinerates the opponent, let's say it's Mephisto, for example, Ghost Rider should probably gain some fury buffs. At the least bit, Ghost Rider should be at least immune to incinerate, and yet we know, even though he has bleed immunity, he is not incinerate immune, and so even though he is literally made of fire, there is nothing that stops him from taking damage from incinerate. Kabam! Say it with me. What were you smoking when you made Ghost Rider? Come on, people. He's an incredible champion that should be immune to fire. He's on frickin' fire. Look at that head. The eyes are glowing, but so is the disrespect. Alright, speaking of champions that shouldn't cause bleed, even though this champion, and I'm just going to do this because sadly it's one of my only 6 stars, this champion is incredible. Or at least I should say, was incredible, before he got nerfed and no longer can bypass Mordo's Astro Evade. Also, he's somebody who just in general could use a buff. But regardless, if you use his special one, which headbutts the opponent, guess what happens? That's right, Angela can't do bleed damage with her sword, neither can PSYLOCKE, and yet Drax can do damage, bleed damage, with his freaking headbutt. Are you kidding me? Say it with me. Kabam! What were you smoking when you made that? I guess Canada has some more legalized drugs, so that might be a reason. Kids, don't do drugs. Don't be Kabam. Now, one of the last things that I want to discuss in this video, and we're going to do Volume 1 and Volume 2 and maybe Volume 3, and I can't wait for the comments because there are going to be a lot of people who say, hey, you missed this. And I'm going to say, you better believe I missed it, and we're going to do a Volume 2 and a Volume 3. But for now, Iron Man Infinity War makes a lot more sense when it comes to his abilities. What's an easy way to make other Iron Men, specifically OG Iron Man and Superior Iron Man, someone that actually could withstand certain damage that is also really common sense? Neither Iron Man nor the cosmic version, which I still think is so crazy that in this game we have someone that's literally called Superior Iron Man. Neither version, I think it's up there, yeah. When you're doing this live, you just got to kind of roll with the punches, and I think that's a rank 5 champion. Let's just filter this by hero rating, and what do you know? There he is. Neither Iron Man nor Superior Iron Man should be a champion that once they gain armor, they have to bleed. That armor at minimum should be bleed proof. And yet, unlike the Infinity War Iron Man, which is head and shoulders, especially for Alliance War defense, above either Iron Man and Superior Iron Man, champions that were created with such an incredible amount of laziness that they have the exact same special attacks and animations, they should be bleed immune at minimum. But really, Iron Man should be immune to most things. And I still think if you're immune to something like my rant about Ghost Rider and Incinerate, if you're immune to that, when somebody tries to cause that, that should not only be an immunity, but they should gain a fury buff. They should gain an attack damage by converting, sort of like what Ghost does now by dashing back and phasing, a buff into a positive fury buff. that is an easy fix that can make older champions so much better. So this is volume 1 of this new series where we talk about buffs that should not be in the game, weird buffs that make no sense. The Kabam interns were somehow sent to make donuts and grab donuts, and then at the same time asked to somehow make buffs that make no sense for champions just to save a couple of cents. All due respect, I have no proof of that. I just think it kind of makes sense because this literally makes no sense. What champions do you think should be have abilities that are buffs to certain things and yet they don't? Who should be in volume 2? Comment below, let me know. The comment that gets the most likes or comments will be pinned. And I just want to say in general, it's time to make older champs better. There are so many older champs that are lagging behind. Kabam told us a year ago that they were committed to this, and they have since stepped that back. Maybe it's because people keep quitting from that company, but regardless, we shouldn't have to count on spending a bunch of money or at least units to get newer champions in order to have OP champions. Iron Man Infinity War should not be head and shoulders above the other two Iron Man, even though he is. So it is time to start discussing easy ways for Kabam to improve older champs that maybe doesn't take 4 or 5 people off their workload and yet still accomplishes the desired goal to have champions in your roster that you can get really excited, just not for the arena, but actually for questing, especially if you are lucky enough to land them as 5 or even 6-star champs. So comment below again, and please let me know what champions you think should be immune to certain buffs that aren't, and how you would improve those champs. You might just see your idea along with a shout out in a future video, because I'm always looking to push myself to create new, fresh, different, interesting content. And this is one of those examples where this hopefully is it. Thanks for watching YouTube. Have a great day.